Welcome to the Google Cloud Update for the week of November 14th, 2025. I'm your host, and we have a jam-packed episode for you today. Seriously, the release notes were overflowing this week. Coming up, we'll be diving into a wave of AI and machine learning updates, including a brand new thinking model in Vertex AI and some powerful new forecasting and anomaly detection capabilities in BigQuery ML. We'll also cover some major developer productivity boosts in our serverless lineup, with Cloud Run, Cloud Functions, and App Engine all getting preview support for Python 3.14. And if that's not enough, we have huge updates across data analytics, storage, and networking, including a game-changing feature for cloud storage. Plus, the security teams have been incredibly busy with major announcements for Security Command Center, Chronicle, and Cloud SQL. There's a lot to get through, so let's jump right in. First up, let's talk about AI and machine learning. In Vertex AI, there are a couple of exciting updates for partner models. First, for those using Anthropic's Claude models, prompt caching now supports a 1-hour time to live, or TTL. This should help improve performance and reduce costs for repetitive queries. But the bigger news is the arrival of a new model in the model garden. Gemini K2 Thinking is now available as a managed API. This is a thinking model that's designed to excel at complex problem-solving and deep reasoning. So if you have some really tough challenges to tackle, you might want to give Kimi a try. On a related note, a quick deprecation notice. Anthropic's Claude 3.7 Sonnet is deprecated as of November 11th and will be shut down on May 11th, 2026. So plan your migrations accordingly. Moving over to our speech models, Speech-to-Text has just launched Chirp 3 in public preview for 4 new regions: Asia South 1 in Mumbai, Europe West 2 in London, Europe West 3 in Frankfurt, and North America Northeast 1 in Montreal. Chirp 3 offers enhanced multilingual accuracy, so it's great to see it expanding its footprint. And on the flip side, for text-to-speech, Chirp 3 HD Voices now supports speech synthesis in 13 new languages. This includes Bulgarian, Czech, Greek, Hungarian, and many more across Central and Eastern Europe. Now let's look at how AI is being integrated deeper into our data platforms, starting with AlloyDB. The AlloyDB AI native vector search accelerator is now generally available. As part of this, the Google Columnar Engine extension can now automatically recommend data for searches, so you don't have to manually specify vector columns. And for you monitoring fans, the AlloyDB Scan extension has new metrics for vector index creation. But that's not all for AlloyDB AI. Auto-embedding generation is now in preview, letting you generate large-scale embeddings for semantic search and retrieval-augmented generation right from your text content. Let's stick with the data theme and move on to BigQuery, which has a massive list of updates this week. First, a new overview page is in preview. This acts as a central hub with tutorials, features, and resources to help new and experienced users get the most out of BigQuery. For those migrating workloads, the SQL translator tools now support translating Apache Impala SQL and even Google SQL itself. The Impala support is fantastic for anyone moving from Cloudera or Hadoop, while the Google SQL to Google SQL translation is great for iteratively testing and optimizing your queries, for example, by applying systematic rewrites with YML configurations. On the governance front, you can now use custom constraints with an organization policy for more granular control over BigQuery dataset resources. This is now generally available. And speaking of GA, you can now use Gemini assistance for data preparation to aggregate and deduplicate table data. Now, for the really cool part, in BigQuery ML. BigQuery ML now supports the TimesFM 2.5 time series foundational model. This updated model promises better forecasting accuracy and lower latency. To go along with this, there is a brand new function in preview called AI.DetectAnomalies. You can use this function with the TimesFM model to detect anomalies in time series data, which is a huge step forward for monitoring and operational intelligence directly within BigQuery. And to wrap up our BigQuery segment, partitioning is now available in preview for big lake tables that use Apache Iceberg. This is a key feature for improving query performance on large Iceberg datasets. To help you visualize and explore all this data, both Looker and Looker Studio have some nice updates. In Looker, conversational analytics is now generally available for instances on Looker 25.18 or later. You no longer need to be in the Trusted Tester program. Just enable the Gemini in Looker setting. For Looker Google Cloud Core instances, you can now also schedule a daily, zero downtime export of your instance. Over in Looker Studio, timeline charts have a fresh, modern look, filter controls can now use parameters as default values, and the Shapes menu has been expanded with new options for your reports. Let's do a lightning round for our other data services. Cloud Spanner Studio now supports exporting query results to CSV, JSON, Google Sheets, or just copying them to your clipboard. Spanner also has a new preview feature that automatically provides recommendations on schema design best practices right on the Spanner Studio page. Dataproc serverless for Apache Spark has a few new runtime versions available. More interestingly, there's a new property, dataproc.artifacts.remove, which lets you remove default artifacts like the BigQuery connector or Iceberg libraries if you don't need them. And finally, Dataform now has general availability for using custom constraints with organization policies on its resources, giving you tighter control over your data transformation workflows. All right, let's shift gears from data to compute and serverless. The big news here is that preview support for the Python 3.14 runtime has landed for Cloud Functions, Cloud Run, and the App Engine flexible environment. Starting with this version, the build pack will use the UV package manager by default to install your dependencies, which should be significantly faster. If you need to, you can still switch back to pip by setting an environment variable. Cloud Run has been getting a lot of love lately. In addition to the new Python runtime, you can now deploy services using a Compose file, which is a fantastic feature for developers coming from the Docker Compose world. Source deployments now also support Ubuntu 24 LTS base images in preview. And for Cloud Run jobs, the maximum task timeout has been increased to a whopping 168 hours, or 7 days, which is now generally available. This is perfect for those really long-running batch processing tasks. In the world of Kubernetes, the N4D machine family is now generally available for both GKE Standard and Autopilot. These instances are powered by the 5th generation AMD EPYC processors, codenamed Turin, so you can expect some serious performance. And for our on-prem and edge customers, there are new versions available for Google Distributed Cloud for VMware. These releases include various fixes and vulnerability patches. As always, if you're using third-party storage, make sure your vendor has qualified their solution for these new releases. Let's talk storage and networking. This is a big one. In cloud storage, you can now use the Google Cloud Console to relocate buckets. This lets you move an existing bucket from one location to another without changing the bucket's name and without having to manually transfer the data. This is a feature people have been asking for a long time, and it's fantastic to see it arrive. Also in cloud storage, you can now enable AutoClass for buckets that have the hierarchical namespace enabled. In networking, Cloud CDN now has general availability for using service extensions to add custom code to the request path. You can use edge extensions before the cache and traffic extensions after the cache to manipulate headers and influence caching and routing. Network Analyzer has become a lot smarter this week. It's gained a whole host of new insight types for detecting tricky routing issues. This includes things like a route's next hop having an IP mismatch, being the wrong forwarding rule type, or pointing to a VPN tunnel that isn't established. It can also now detect more types of shadow dynamic routes. To streamline things, some older, more generic insight types have been retired. And a few more quick networking updates. For Private Service Connect, service producers can now accept or reject connections from individual endpoints in preview. And firewall endpoints now have general availability for jumbo frame support, up to 8,500 bytes. Now for our security roundup, and it is a big one, starting with Security Command Center. Data Security Posture Management, or DSPM, is now generally available for the enterprise tier. This is a huge milestone for data-aware security. Also, Model Armor, which helps protect your AI models, is now available in 4 more regions across Europe and Asia. For those using Identity Federation, you can now export findings to CSV or cloud storage. And finally, compliance managers' monitoring and auditing capabilities have also hit general availability. Over in Chronicle, the team has released a ton of enhancements. Raw log search has been improved with new filtering options, a collapsible trend graph to give you more screen space, and the ability to download results to CSV. You can now also use nested if statements in your rules and searches for more complex logic. And there's a brand new MITRE ATT and CK coverage dashboard to help you assess your threat coverage and identify gaps. On top of all that, Chronicle has added documentation for a massive list of new parsers. We're talking dozens of new log sources, from Akamai and Aruba to CrowdStrike, Cynet, and Imperva. Let's keep the security train rolling. Cloud KMS has a new encryption metrics dashboard in preview. It helps you understand your customer-managed encryption key usage by showing which resources are protected, how well you're aligned to best practices, and a breakdown of protection by service. Cloud SQL has rolled out brute force detection and protection for your instances, helping to automatically identify and mitigate these kinds of access attempts. This is a fantastic security baseline improvement. And specifically for Cloud SQL for MySQL, you can now have more control over approximate nearest neighbor vector searches. By enabling the Cloud SQL vector iterative filtering flag, the engine will keep searching if your initial filters return fewer results than you asked for in your limit clause. And finally, a couple of great updates for governance and developers. Service usage now supports hierarchical service activation in preview, letting you enable or disable services across your entire resource hierarchy. And Cloud Endpoints now officially supports Open API version 3.0, meaning you can deploy your 3.0 specs directly without converting them to 2.0 first. And that's a wrap for this week's Google Cloud Update. Whew! From the GA of Data Security Posture Management in Security Command Center and the new Gemini K2 model in Vertex AI, to the game-changing bucket relocation in cloud storage and Python 3.14 support across our serverless platforms, there is a ton of new functionality to explore. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week for another dose of Google Cloud News.